Good morning, everyone. I know Denise is continuing to give out the handouts, and while she finishes that, I'm going to start roll call. I appreciate everyone's patience on this beautiful 10th day of October. This is the Brooklyn Service Cabinet meeting at Brooklyn Borough Hall. I'm Diana Reina, the Deputy Brooklyn Borough President. I'd like to begin by calling out Community Boards 1, Gerald Esposito.
Marie Wong, present.
Community Board 2, Robert Perez. Community Board 3, Henry Butler.
Present.
Community Board 4, Celestina Leon.
Present.
Community Board 5, Melinda Perkins. Community Board 6, Craig Hemmerman.
Present.
Welcome back. Community Board 7, Jeremy Loffer. Community Board 8, Michelle George. Community Board 9. Community Board 10, Josephine Beckman. Community Board 11, Marnie Elias Pavilla.
Here.
Community Board 12, Barry Spitzer. Community Board 13, Eddie Mark.
Present.
Community Board 14, Sean Elise Campbell. Community Board 15, Laura Singer.
Here.
Community Board 16, Viola Green Walker.
Here.
Community Board 17, Sharif Frazier. Community Board 18, Dorothy Torano. At this moment, I'd like to welcome the Department of Environmental Protection. We're going to have on the agenda what is the presentation from Ibrahim Abdul Mateen, Director of Community Affairs from the Department of Environmental Protection for New York City on rain garden construction. And at this time, I'd like to thank Denise and Ibrahim for their participation in the borough consultation round. And we have follow-up conversations as well as action items that we are going to continue to work on. But at this time, Ibrahim, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Forgive me for being late today, and kudos to the Deputy Borough President and all of you wonderful people. This is a great group of knowledgeable people. So I'm always nervous in front of the Brooklyn Borough and all the borough leaders and cabinet people and blah, 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 blah. So what I'll say is this, to begin also, what I'm going to present is the update related to how we are implementing the Green Infrastructure Right-of-Way program. That means when we say right-of-way, we're speaking about the areas that the city does have control over and leverage over, meaning the city streets and sidewalks. And also the reason why I'm framing this as an update, because the program has been around for maybe 7-8 years, or maybe just a tad longer. But as we've developed it, there have been some snags, and we have heard from community members throughout the city, and we have changed and altered the program based on the input that we've gotten from residents. We've done a lot of tinkering and tweaking of how we roll this out. So hopefully what I'm going to present to you and what's in your packets is a little bit of an understanding of how that is, and we can discuss that. Instead of putting up the presentation, we gave you guys the presentation. So you can follow along briefly if you like. Just to review, New York City mostly has a combined sewer system, which means that sanitary flow and your stormwater flow sometimes mixes into that system. Just to give you an overview of what we have 14 wastewater treatment plants and 420 combined sewer outfalls. There's a lot of sewers in the city. A lot of them are, it was a state-of-the-art system when it was built. And the other areas that are not combined sewers are separate sewers. That means that the stormwater flow goes in a stormwater pipe, and your sanitary flow, which is the sewage coming from your home, goes into a specific pipe. That just gives you an overview of that. Our rain gardens, what is a rain garden? It's a type of green infrastructure. So it's just one form of green infrastructure designed to reduce the CSOs. CSOs are what we call that combined sewage overflow. So if there's a particularly dramatic rain event, that your sanitary flow mixes with your stormwater and it goes into the same pipe and it goes into our facilities. Our facilities cannot handle it in certain types of rain events. In this instance, what we've created, the Green Infrastructure Program was designed to prevent that stormwater flow from overwhelming the sanitary system. So rain gardens are just a type, we used to call them bioswales. Don't ever use that word again. And I'll probably never say it again. But it's just it's a type to get that stormwater runoff at the street level before it gets into the system. So it's just basic. You prevent the water from getting into the system so that we don't have to deal with it, and then we send it back into the earth where hopefully it can be useful. We also have some, just quick about the design. I'll just say this, is that when we're siting locations, part of the rubric for our siting locations is looking at the underground geology. Now, if any of you are familiar with construction practices or at construction sites of any type, one of the first things that they'll do is to drill into the ground, to do some coring, to figure out what's underneath the ground. They just need to know what they're working with. Particularly in a city like New York, where there's a lot of stuff underground, wires and pipes and tunnels and forgotten places that no one's ever been to, and archaeological sites as well. So we need to understand what's under the ground. And so that's the first step that happens. Sometimes people get very alarmed when they see a drilling rig in front of their property, and I understand that. That makes a lot of sense. That's what they're trying to do, is determine, is this place a place that that can capture the water? Because in some places where the bedrock is very high, putting in a rain garden there will make the problem worse, because the water will literally just sit there and pool and not go anywhere. So this just shows you some of the design. I do want to share, the next slide is slide 6. There's a rain garden, a sidewalk rain garden design, which is sort of an alternate design that we've created. In some locations, we still want to have the benefits of capturing the stormwater, but we don't necessarily have the flexibility of having that above ground space. While we do miss the greening aspect, and also we miss the benefit of the better oxygen and that sort of thing, we still are able to capture the water. That's our fundamental responsibility, is to make sure we capture the water. So we put a concrete cover essentially over top an existing sort of an engineered rain garden. Engineered meaning we have the right types of soil, right types of rocks that make sure that the water travels down into the ground. Another design that we're working from is one that has a grass strip. So some of you guys in your neighborhoods, they have a green strip right on the sidewalk. Outside of there's the person's property, there's a sidewalk, and then there's a green strip on right before you get to the street. This accommodates for that green strip, is that we basically build it with the green strip in mind so that people don't get their green strip compromised. And also just sort of the look and the feel, because a lot of times those neighborhoods in particular, the sidewalks are more narrow, and so you don't have as much room to work with there. So we wanted to make sure that we could accommodate that type of space. So these are the 3 designs that we're working from. I guess, yeah, okay. Any quick questions about the designs? Yeah.
On the 2 alternate designs, because I've never seen them before.
Use the mic.
On the 2 alternate designs, I've never seen them before. We have former bioswales in our district.
Yep.
Current rain gardens.
Yeah.
How do you screen for floatables and maintain those?
I think what they're working on that, because that is an issue. So I think one of the things that one of the designs they're having is going to have some simple grates that are going to be there to make sure that you don't get floatables going into them. Because you're spot on with that. Part of what we have to do for the separately sewered areas of the city, we also have another permit where we have to reduce the amount of floatables that go into the waterways, and to improve the quality of the water, and then also, so that's and also reduce the amount of stormwater altogether. But the floatables is a big issue. So there are different designs at the entry point for the water to capture some of those floatables and make sure. And then once we'll get into the sort of process stuff, but once the rough thing is that we contract out, and actually I'll just dive into that real quick right now, just so you can understand the relationship that DEP has to each asset. So the next one is our approach. So the focus and the way that we're going to be executing all of these rain gardens, I was about to say it. The way that we're going to be executing all of them is this area-wide approach. Now, it begins with identifying which are the priority areas. So there's certain areas that are priority CSO areas. And once we've identified those areas, we sort of look for, we're going to look to saturate these areas with as much green infrastructure as we could possibly do. Now, what I'm speaking about today is primarily our right-of-way program. We have partnerships with parks. We have partnerships with NYCHA. We have partnerships with, actually, we have partnership in CB6 that we're doing with parks that we just did an announcement about. We have partnerships with NYCHA. We have partnerships with, we give out green infrastructure grants to private developers and private homeowners, depending on the project. So there's other things that we're doing in those areas. So we're targeting these priority areas in lots of different ways. If you see there, you can track the progress online. And each of these priority areas are contract areas. And within these areas, we have these small contract areas. Because within a contract area, there's going to be, maybe hundreds of types of green infrastructure that's going to happen. So we couldn't just say, DDC, do all of them, or so-and-so entity, whatever, do every single bioswale or rain garden that you possibly can. We broke it up into small bits so that we could have different contracts for each of them. That's the approach that we've taken. I would say that based on the priority areas given to us by the state, the way that they're being rolled out, where the green infrastructure is coming, is based on our responsibility to maintain the watershed in that area. Does that make sense, everybody? So where we have the most problems with CSOs, we're doing those areas first, and then it's sort of rolling from there. This does not mean, and I'll just make this clear, that there's not going to be GI in other areas of the city. It just means that the priority and the focus in the beginning of the process is happening in areas where we have the worst CSO problems.
What about sandy communities, like Red Hook, Coney Island?
Most of those areas are in our separately sewered areas. So
they're not going to get this type of thing?
They may or may not. In some areas they will get, in certain parts of the city they will, but again, in some of those areas that are very low lying, it doesn't actually work, doesn't actually make sense. Yeah. But where they can, they're going to put them. So for example, we are looking at some beach areas closer in the separately sewered areas where there might be a slight up, crest before you get to the beach area. And so that might be a good area to put some of those GI practices there.
Naeem, can you pause?
Yeah, please.
Of course. Thanks. In terms of problem areas, how are you defining problems? Are those flooding complaints?
It's not flooding complaints. This would be CSO areas. So these are the areas that drain into a specific CSO outfall.
And the problem then, what is the problem defined as?
The problem is defined as too many CSO incidents in that area, okay. in that drainage area.
Okay, and then the area.
And then hold on, I'll just say that that's set also by the state as what we're mandated to reduce the amount of CSOs in that specific area. So DEC has put an order on us to reduce CSOs dramatically. Obviously, we don't want any CSOs. And so the areas that they've prioritized, we have to prioritize. That's where we put the GI.
Okay. And then the area is defined.
I'm sorry. Can you just unveil that just a little deeper?
Yeah.
The CSO priorities.
Correct.
Because they're feeding Gowanus Canal.
Or any canal. Any canal.
Newtown Creek.
Any. It could be Owl's Head. Rockaway. No, not Rockaway. 26th
Just
Ward.
in Brooklyn.
Yeah, 26th Ward. Owl's Head, Newtown Creek, Red Hook. I think those are
You said Owl's Head.
Coney Island. Sorry, Coney Island. What's that?
At Coney Island Water Treatment Plant, we have Garrettson Creek, and we also have Sheepshead.
Coney Island. Yeah. I'm just saying in terms of those are the water bodies around it, correct? And then all those outfalls. So it's related really to the water bodies. And so it's basically, so if you think about the water bodies around it, like you're saying, those specific water bodies around the city, around Brooklyn, and where we're draining into those areas where we have the most CSO incidents, that's where we're focused.
But the incidents are detected by complaints, which is part of
They're not
what-
detected by complaints.
And so it's detected by whom or what?
That's just a certain storm over a certain amount, over a certain amount of volume over a certain period of time.
Because it's being measured?
because there's just so much water that the system is not designed to handle like flush of water that comes from the sanitary and from a huge storm at the same time.
But what I'm trying to understand is, what is measuring? What is an overflow?
I mean, we measure it, the state measures it.
And so there's tools that are being used to measure
Correct.
that are part of the infrastructure.
Yes, they're
And
not.
so
They're
we're
not.
skipping a whole chapter, and I don't want to assume people understand this, because this started a while ago, and it's in response to what was DEC suing, or, you know, what would be the city of New York. And so that's why we have sewage treatment plants that were forced upon certain communities, right? That's why we have what is, what are rain gardens today, to continue to deal, and these are all phase-ins, to continue to assist what is the reduction of the combined sewage outflow. And so I just want to understand, these metering monitors are detecting what is the problem sites.
I think that what they're determining is, I don't know exactly and I could look at what exactly the technology looks like, but there's a certain threshold that we get over a storm, over a certain amount, we start to become worried about the system. And then as it increases in intensity, they send out, DEC sends out notices, and some of the folks probably get those notices about that there might be some concern about outfalls or certain locations. And then if there's a major dramatic storm, we do ask people, you know, just clean off their the catch basins and that sort of thing, to make sure that stuff moves very quickly in the initial phases, because then we don't want things to get too blocked up and bottled up. It also depends on lots of different factors. So, for example, some of the wastewater treatment plants and facilities, we do have some storage capacity in some of the larger sewers that get to them, and so sometimes those things will fill up, like the huge regulators will fill up, and then it'll just slowly go through over time. Some of them are older, like a 26 Ward or Coney Island, that are older facilities that don't have a lot of that. So in some of those places, where do we have in CB? Was it CB? That has the that's in the CSO, the holding tank. We have a community board that meets in one of not 11. No. They have a where am I blanking on it? It's in Brooklyn. It's CB 16 maybe, where I think it's 16. Oh no, who's the one that meets in one of our facilities?
It's 18. It's start.
There we go. Paddock. Okay, Paddock Basin, which is basically, we've created huge tanks, and we're doing that in the Gowanus to capture stormwater essentially holding tanks. So that's what you've highlighted, is that there's two different types of ways to solve this problem. One is to build huge holding tanks. The other one is to build green infrastructure. Those are the two types that we have now. Who knows what the future holds?
And we still don't know if it's reaching the levels we're supposed to be at, because we're supposed to meet certain goals.
Oh no, of course we know if it's reaching the levels. Yeah, I mean, the ultimate indicator is the water quality in the water body, in the water body. So the water quality has been improving every year. It's been improving. So we're definitely improving in terms of capturing and preventing water from contaminated water from getting to the water bodies. It's never, in our lifetimes, it's never been better, and it's continuing to get better every year. And we also have
water is tested
every year. I mean,
once a year.
No, quarterly. It's the harbor quality survey.
I'm not debating. It's just
No,
you need
no.
to explain all of this, so that way there's an understanding.
You know what's funny? I assume that these people
Yeah,
know.
you don't need to.
So New York City, there's two things that New York City has innovated on in terms of data, and that no other city had done until it started. And the first thing it did in like over 100 years ago is it started doing a harbor survey. So it started identified certain points in our water bodies around the city to test water quality every season. So that's one thing that's never happened before. Now that's been happening. We have data the way that baseball has data. Like we have 100 years of data about our water quality, and that's why we can actually accurately say that it's better than it's ever been in sort of modern times, since we started realizing that you can't just dump feces into the water. And then which I think we figured that out a long time ago. We just were lazy. The other thing that we did, just as a side note, is that about 10 years ago we started testing the air quality on every quarterly as well. So that that gives us more data about our air quality as well. But yeah, the harbor quality survey. The other thing that we do with the harbor quality survey, with the water quality, is that we give community groups the protocols for testing. So if people are testing water quality in their areas, if they're curious about it, we will accept your data. If you have the data, if you have it tested or gathered the way that we need for our scientific purposes, then we also do that as well. And there's lots of other, I was on Coney Island Creek last year, and we did some specific testing where we thought there might have been some illegal outfalls and illegal discharge points. So we do lots of testing, and that really anchors it, and that tells us where it is. And then ultimately the state, DEC, decides if they accept it or not, or what the classification of that water. So that's a different program. So that's why I said there's different. The New York Rising program is not in our CSO areas necessarily, or if it is, if New York Rising is, most of those areas were related to Sandy and recovery. And we can get to it, and I can't speak specifically about it, but in general, New York Rising had identified areas that were outside of our CSO focus areas. Saying that means, okay, so let me be clear. We've focused on our priority areas. It does not mean that we can't use green infrastructure outside of those priority areas or that it wouldn't add value to those areas. The reason why we focus on it now is because we have to do a lot to capture more stormwater. So if we're going to put it on a timetable of 10 years or whatever, in the first couple of years we're going to focus on the priority areas, and then we would get to those other areas later. Now, with New York Rising, what the state did is that they stepped in and said some of these other areas could benefit from having some green infrastructure practices or other things. And that whole process that you went through, the community-involved process, identified whatever menu of possible solutions, and that was one of those menus of possible solutions. And in some of those areas, we did borings, and we determined that green infrastructure could help for some of the localized flooding that's happening in those areas, and also to prevent sort of to help prevent. It's not like an end-all and stop-all, because I'm sure OEM has lots of other tools that they have at play for protecting those areas, but we do need to get some of that water off the streets, and this is one of those tools in some of those sandy areas.
Okay, and that leads me to my second question. I'm wondering if you're partnering with city planning and DOB to identify illegal curb cuts and front yard removal to increase absorption.
I agree with you 100%. That is somewhat of a sensitive question, which is why I laugh.
And that's why I asked.
You're right. And so I have been pushing, I'll just say this. Sometimes I go into my boss's office and I fight for things. When you realize in city government, like 90% of the things that you fight for don't happen, but there's a 10% that you have to be willing to go to bat for. This is one of those issues that when I think of you guys, and I think of like 4 or 5 folks in Queens, in community board, and also a handful of folks in the Bronx that have brought up the same specific complaint. And I recently walked into my boss's office and said, listen, this has to happen. You guys have to figure this out. So I look forward to coming back here and saying that there's been some progress on how we're doing this, because this is a glaring problem that we have with absorption.
But it's also an enforcement issue, because
That's exactly what it is.
part of the issue here is that, let's say new development is actually constructed, handed over to the new homeowner, and what they prefer is a driveway as opposed to a garden. And so it's one of those issues where if the buildings department, along with DEP, as well as city planning, don't come together to say, what is the better design to make sure that we're increasing what is open space, landscape, urban design, right? Urban design isn't really taken into effect in city planning. It's more urban planning, right? And so the urban design aspect, where this integrated system we're trying to achieve is absorbed into what is policy, and then enforcement continues. I remember in Staten Island, this was a big deal. In Staten Island, they enforce what would be these green front lawns and making sure that McMansions don't continue to take over what is the front yard community that they so preserve in Staten Island. And there were policies that went into effect to deal with that. In addition to wherever there were driveways, they were grandfathered in elsewhere in the city, Brooklyn being one of those. And so we need more leverage in our borough where we want to encourage this more so from homeowners than the reverse. We used to have a lot more urban landscape in the front yards as opposed to what we see today. Bushwick Avenue, that was all front lawn. Today, all you see on a heavy, what would be considered a boulevard, are driveways. So I just want to share, Ibrahim, you could add Brooklyn to the list, unless there's anyone here who is expressing as district manager that that is not a priority for your community. But we want to be able to see what is more urban landscape integrated as part of policies and enforcement in a coordinated way that we should be achieving. And that's not going to be one person going back to an office bureaucrat saying we need it. We have to collectively make sure that we're positioning that to happen.
Or maybe it's one deputy borough president pulling together everybody.
We have a fierce group of district managers, and I think that this is something that is doable. I know that I spent a lot of grant capital on just doing what was the city's job in planting trees in my district. And I probably spent $2 million just on trees alone. And it was to specifically deal with a barren desert, which has been, this was before the rain gardens, this was before Million Trees. And it was because you go from Brooklyn to Queens, which was my district. You go from no trees to trees, literally. And it shouldn't be that way. That's an equity issue. And so if we're not prioritizing that in our borough, no one else will.
And I just want to add to that, CB10 just completed a study of the impact of the Streetscape Text Amendment, which was instituted citywide back in 2009, and CB10 was very instrumental in advocating for that, which requires, in the lower contextual density districts, a 25% planting requirement. But we have not seen the enforcement. Last week, I stopped a cement truck from pouring cement into a front garden of a new development that just had a DOB sign-off, because it is easier to maintain. But in looking at, along with our board members, without that enforcement, we will just continue to have those front gardens that are required by law paved over without enforcement. So I think a combination of DEP with DOB and city planning to review that impact of what already is law is very critical to our districts. It is, we had that concern when the Streetscape Text Amendment was passed, that enforcement would be the biggest hurdle, and it's come to fruition. It really is a big hurdle.
So we can certainly request for our next meeting in November, as a follow-up to this meeting, because if you don't do it when it's fresh, it doesn't happen at all. And this is part of what perhaps enforcement in general, the constraints of DOB to have to enforce what is illegal conversion versus front yard, 25% landscape.
It's a deep priority.
Right, so we have to make sure that that is a priority in borough consultation, where each community board raises the fact that enforcement is critical to our borough, and subsets of what is should be enforced, right? Because an increase in inspectors, as far as a budgetary item, that is one of the failures, right? It doesn't come from the bottom up, unless we're prioritizing it from the bottom up. They just keep the same head count. And the same head count right now is not meeting the demand. So I just wanted to share that, because you're going to have to make sure you plan ahead for the following budget year. It's a great opportunity to raise items like this that you continue to just add. Sean, can you say that? I
You
didn't
can't
hear
say
you.
that they can't have access, it's right in the front, for the inspectors.
Right, that's right. It's one of the easier
It's,
items.
yeah, but-
And it modifies behavior, right? Once you start enforcing these issues, people tend to then think twice, my next door neighbor just got fined or was warned, right? And there really isn't material that's handed out where DEP could be helpful, is expressing to people why this is important, to encourage this type of behavior. Don't pour concrete in your front lawn. I know that the convenience of what is an extra parking space is what you want to see, but this is what you're doing, which is creating more of a burden on your household infrastructure that you can't see, that will then cost you more money.
And I think that's the point. We have to look at it not as a quality of life issue, but an environmental issue
Mm-hmm.
and lack of absorption. And get that message out.
I wish people loved that as an issue. I don't know if they do care as much as they care about, preserving whatever, creating more parking space or whatever it is. But it is, at the end of the day, it is an
But
enforcement
it's an
issue.
illegal activity.
It is
and
illegal,
It
yeah.
can never be legalized
For sure.
under current zoning. So now we have to look at it. It's not just about a parking spot
Yep.
or an illegal curb cut.
Good point.
It's a matter of that we need to divert the water.
And then
from
we're
the
not in
issue.
compliance
That's
as the
right.
federal and state,
And
yeah.
many of our front gardens don't even have the depth, I mean,
Yeah.
people just wanna do it for the ease of maintenance. I mean, so we're seeing that, and we brought up as a group to the Department of Buildings, they should require a permit for cementing over the front yard.
Right.
To make sure that there is compliance.
And what was their response?
We'll look into it. Never happened.
And perhaps this is where our legislators,
Yeah.
as partners, could be helpful, right? To require that as a law now. But these are, different points that can be relevant to achieve the end goal. But it's something that in the council, we were very active, and it's not all 51, right? It's majority what would be the outer boroughs, more so than what would be Manhattan. So we just want to make sure that if this is something that we want to change the outlook on, and it's both what would be policy as well as enforcement. We will resume, Elaine, you are on page 9.
Yep. So I just wanted to, okay, so this slide basically walks through or shows you the way we think about the right-of-way and the spaces and how we break up the zones. This comes directly from DOT and our relationship with DOT, figuring out what's the best way and where are the spaces where the city has the ability to make interventions to capture stormwater. There's above-ground constraints and there's below-ground constraints. So that just gives you an outline of that area. I'm going to jump to the selection process. Like I said before, we do soil investigations, surveys, and then when we go into the dive into the construction process, before we even get there, we have to do lots of utility coordination. I think that that's the biggest piece of our process, is making sure that we understand what's underground, what could we potentially be hampering or impeding, and so we want to make sure that we sit down with National Grid and Con Ed and all the other utilities that are in the mix to make sure that we understand what's under the ground. There should be another sheet that, I'm not sure if we have it here, but you know what, let's just skip really quickly. I'm going to look at this one at CB7. All the other ones, you can look at them the same way. Actually, let's look at CB8.
Oh, yeah.
I think you guys had that in it, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
number 12.
So what we hear is we get a snapshot of what's in the area, of what assets we have planned. Now, the breakdown is that we break it down. Constructed is basically constructed, or yellow's in construction. Red is preliminary, means that we have a bunch of work that we're sort of trying to figure out that it might make sense there. And now a good rule of thumb to think about is most of the places that we've cited, about 10% of those locations will end up having a rain garden. So that's the rule that we've sort of come up with, yep.
Just to read, to connect the slides. If there's a red dot,
Yeah,
does that correspond to the green street marking?
correct. So that they've looked at that and said, this is a place that we think is a good idea. That's a great heads up, yeah. So you see the green street marking. Other utilities have different colors. I think natural gas is yellow or orange, yeah. So there's different colors. A green street marking means, and that's actually a great point and a great heads up for when residents call the boards. When they say, oh, that's green spray paint, what does that mean? It means that that's a preliminary location. We haven't done all the investigations to see if it makes sense fully, but that's a preliminary idea of where, and they're looking mainly at the topographical reality. So when they do a survey and a walkthrough of an area, they're looking at where's the water flowing, where's our existing assets, i.e. like our catch basins, and what is the sort of natural crusting of the road? How do we work within this context in this particular area to capture the water that's in this location? So yeah, so it's a pretty low percentage of the places that we see, because there's lots of reasons why things might get bumped out of the picture. And so you can look at, I'm not going to go through each of the boards, and I think for the boards that we have rain gardens in construction or rain gardens being planned, that information is here.
Could we go to slide 15?
Yeah.
Community Board 11. It says CSO outfalls. And that particular directional on the map, is that the Bell Parkway?
Yes.
And is that the point of interest that we continue to raise where everything gets flooded?
I think we identified that is parks and state DOT and city DOT have to coordinate.
You identified, that's not what we identified.
Hold on, didn't you and Mario have like a whole moment? You guys had a
We
whole
had a
like,
moment.
had a moment of truth about this location?
Because it was left unresolved.
No, but then they spoke later on, either that day or the next day.
DEP maintained. Oh, from what we were told and what we know, DEP cleans and maintains the catch basin
Yep.
on the Belt Parkway.
Yep,
Not DOT.
yep,
Okay. The parklands is there along the promenade,
yep,
so it's mixed use, mixed jurisdictions.
yep.
And DEP has CSOs.
And DEP has the CSOs.
Yeah, well, the CSOs are always ours, but but if there's flooding there, then, and if there's a catch
DEP.
basin, then we would clean it out. And
Correct.
that's not a standard rule every location. That's something that happens depending on the location, depending on the dynamics of relationships, the conversations that are happening at a level way above me.
Right, so part of the continued conversation is, on this map, it identifies it as a CSO outfall.
And then there's
We confirm
yeah, and it's a,
anecdotally that there is flooding issues constantly.
yeah,
And so we want to hear back
this is a
formally.
phase 4, right? So we're not quite at that phase yet.
And it's
Because
not even including the area that floods.
But it's not so much the area. Remember,
It's
this
the
is
dam.
system, so we're
Yes.
trying to figure out what can we capture before we even get to those areas, before it can even flood. But this is not, being in phase 4 means that we know that there's an issue there, and we know that we're going to get to it.
So Marnie, just to keep things positive, what I hear from Ibrahim is, as well as DEP in general, is that now there's no question, jurisdiction is clear, DEP is responsible. It's in conjunction with what would be parks and DOT, Nonetheless, there is a problem site here that has been confirmed, but it's confirmed in the later phases of this integrated system. And keeping what is that in mind, making sure that as they continue to progress with this integrated system and figure out where the flow of the topography of that immediate area continues to be communicated back to you. And so what role could the community board play in advancing conversations to make sure that this is acknowledged? Because part of the frustration was that it wasn't being acknowledged.
I think the community board has played the perfect role, and they've already played it.
Right, and so this, phase 4 is,
Phase 4 is not immediate, not right now, but it's
Right.
definitely in the queue.
right, but in the queue of a proposed timeline of when? Because there's always a proposed timeline. Whether or not we stick to it is another.
Well, it was a 10-year approach. I'm not exactly sure where we're at with the state with the full timeline, so we can get back to you guys better about when the timelines would be, when they're going to be
And
activated.
that's more important
Yep.
for us to have a clear understanding. And we're in phase 2 and 1.
I believe so, yeah.
And so 3 and 4 is next, but it's a 10-year plan. And so this is part of what we're trying to make sure we don't lose sight of this.
Quick question. Where does a MS4 fall into this project?
It doesn't,
It doesn't? So
not into
then-
this project.
Okay, all right.
MS4 is a totally separate
Totally different,
entity, yeah.
Okay.
So you're going to, Ibrahim, you're going to send us a follow-up email
Yep.
with the timeline
The timeline.
as to proposed expected date to begin what could be phase 4.
Yes, I'll do my best.
I appreciate that.
That's a great point. I'll just jump to, I think what we have, okay. I think we had, I hope she had did she hand you out letters? Yes. Okay, great. So there's 2 different types of letters that are here. I'm gonna look at my little cheat sheet. So letters are based on the tax code for the property. Letter 1 has the opt-out information. So there's 2 situations where a homeowner could opt out. One is that they might have like a sprinkler system in the ground underneath the green strip that would make it impossible for us to dig in that area. The other situation is if someone has a valid parking permit for people with disabilities. Those are the 2 scenarios where you can get an opt-out. So right now we have I'll give you the contact information in a little bit. Well, actually, it's there. Yeah. So if your neighbors or the people are saying I can opt out, I should be able to opt out, they should call that number, email them, and send in a copy of the image of their, a photo of their permit, or it's extremely helpful for people to call and or send an email and let us know what's going on about, like, if they feel that they can opt out, then they should call and work that through folks, because then we've done this a lot now recently in places where we're doing stuff, where we've gotten stuff in real time, like literally there's someone there about to start constructing, but then someone says, oh, I opted out, but they never said anything to us. And then in real time, we're getting them to send us photos of their stuff, and then we're telling the crews to go away, right? We will make adjustments, but it'd be better to know that before we even get to a zone or get to an area of areas that were completely off the list, so we don't even put them on the list.
Could I ask?
The second, sorry.
I'm sorry. I just need to ask, how do you know what is the difference between a rain garden versus just the Department of Parks and Recreation coming?
We have different bars around it. We have specific bars. The curb cuts are very different. They would never.
No, that I know, but before,
And then we have the signage, the very specific signage.
right, but you're assuming the fence was installed at the same time as the tree planted. And that's not the case.
Well, they would never have the curb cut. The Department of Parks would never have the curb cut.
Right, but I guess what I'm trying to understand is the curb cut and the widening of the space for the rain garden installed before the
That-
tree is installed?
That doesn't, that would, yes, they would construct the space, and they would build it, and because the engineering is mostly underground, and they would build it out, and then they would put the plantings inside.
So if in a street you have what are rain gardens, but then as it gets closer to the corner, what I thought were rain gardens turned out to be just tree plantings.
Yeah, if they're not specifically engineered, like if you can tell that the curb cuts are designed to capture the stormwater. If it's just a regular curb and it has the tree is there, then it's not a rain garden, and it would be a parks.
But what makes then that particular corner less viable, considering that there were rain gardens before on the block?
I'm not sure I get you.
So in the middle of the block, there's rain gardens, and then as you get closer to the corner, catch basin,
Yep.
there are no rain gardens.
There may not be a need because if we have a catch basin on that corner, and depending on the other side of the corner, and if we're capturing stormwater at that location, there may not necessarily be a need to have more rain gardens in that location because we already have a stormwater capture device at the end of the street, which is the catch basin.
Okay.
So this just gives you the two letters that your residents will be receiving. All the electeds have received them as well, just to give you a sense of what it is. Yeah, and then one of them it also lays out. One of them lays out if they have the location that typically has people that are opting out, like the type of area it is. The other one is more of like for bigger buildings or commercial properties and that sort of thing where there's not as much room to, they're not going to really be able to opt out, and it just lets them know what's going on, what's happening. We also have included other languages in there as well, just in case. Let's see. Oh yeah. So I'll just say that as it goes through the process of being constructed, the asset, the rain garden is the responsibility to clean it is the responsibility of it's the contractor, the person who's building it. Then it transitions into DEP's responsibility. It then is on a schedule very similar to the catch basin cleanup schedule. So we are constantly building up our green infrastructure cleanup crews and maintenance crews. They have the same civil service title right now as a park worker is one of them. And then also like a watershed maintainer is another of one of the civil service titles that we have for that. And we're constantly hiring them. They're going to be in our Bureau of Water and Sewer Operations. So they're going to be deployed from there. So they're going to be deployed through the borough offices.
And if people are interested in applying for those
Yeah,
civil
they can-
service jobs, can you just mention how?
I mean, they go to the DP website or go to nyc.gov jobs. All that stuff is on there to get in that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's any direct specific portal for that, but they would go through that vehicle.
And if you could repeat it for the camera.
nyc.gov/jobs.
Just a couple of questions. What is the cleaning schedule?
I don't have it with me. I mean, I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know. But it's similar to the catch basin cleanup schedule, which is they take certain areas in certain zones and then they maintain them. But this is a totally new thing because it's changing constantly because they're coming online pretty much weekly, right? So they're adjusting and changing and adjusting and changing as they get more people and they get more assets online.
Are y'all at the point where you feel you have enough people? Because I know that at one point, sanitation had to come out and do the cleaning because DEP was just lagging behind and keeping the rain gardens
I
clean.
don't know if I agree with how you're characterizing that, but sanitation at one point was responsible for that, and then we shifted responsibility. So it was a part of the agreements and how we were doing it early on, but now DEP has taken on the workers from parks and from other places that were doing that work, and we're adding in more people.
So in the beginning, it was sanitation and not parks.
I don't know all the people in the beginning,
Okay.
so I'm not going to speak on it fully, but I'll just say that it's shifted, and now the responsibility is with DEP.
And if someone feels the garden is filthy and they make a 3-on-1 call, how soon will we get a crew out there to clean it?
You're asking for a $1 million question right there. I don't know how soon it's going to get. Again, we're still getting used to the system and how this works. And there are times when some of the rain gardens are filthy, and it frustrates us and it bothers us as well. And we send out crews the more complaints we get about specific locations, specific rain gardens, the more if you send in a 311 complaint and then you get it to Denise and myself, then we'll make sure that we fill the gap where the system isn't working.
Okay, last question, on the greenery, if there's something planted, for example, there's a tree that they planted, it's a berry tree. If anyone knows about those berry trees, when they drop the berries, it stains up the concrete.
I don't think they're planting those in the rain gardens.
We have one of them on my block.
Okay.
Are we able to request to get that removed?
Why?
I don't know. I don't think that you can request. I mean, the plants are engineered for a specific reason to capture as much water as possible, because you can't just put any plant in a place that's going to get flooded. But we've never heard that. That's a very interesting question. Can we switch out the stuff?
You're not supposed to.
I don't think so.
The rain garden started in my district when this first was launched, and I know that there were specific training workshops with homeowners to teach the specific native plants that they're using in order to address what is the capturing of the purpose.
No, I get that. I'm just saying that I know that sort of tree that is planted.
Is there only one that you know
Yeah,
of?
yeah, that's planted.
Can you send a picture of it and the location? I think that would be helpful.
Because when it drops, it stains, like the concrete literally will turn black. So then,
And never comes off?
No.
Not even with goof off?
No, you got to do some sort of super power wash. So I'll send it to you.
Yeah, that'd be great. We also have the online map. Hopefully you guys have gone to the online map and dove in on it. You can put in a location. You can get a lot of information about what it's nyc.gov/DEP/GI map, just the letters. And it shows you what their status are, if they're in design, construction, or constructed. Green means they're constructed. Yellow means they're in construction. We have a lot going on, and particularly we have a lot on the edges of Queens and Brooklyn, and CB8 and CB3, some of these areas where there's a lot of activity happening with our green infrastructure right now. We talked about maintenance. They go regularly. I'm going to do my best to try and see if we have a schedule that we can share. I don't know yet if we do have one, but I'll ask that question internally and see if we can share a schedule.
Ibrahim, I know they do, because that was one of the first questions I had.
I know.
In order to make sure, and one of the issues was a lot of the lack of communication with
Yep.
the homeowners,
Yep.
right? And so making sure that there is a time schedule that's shared. I know that it's not going to stay on target,
Yeah.
but it's important to give people what is the notification of something that they can anticipate as opposed to nothing.
I think the problem is that we're challenged, like I was saying earlier, is that it's not like with the catch basins where we have fixed assets that have been there for, whatever, how many years, decades. And that we have a really humming system, and we could easily jump from inspecting them once a year to inspecting them, once every 3 years to inspecting them once a year, because we already know where they are.
Mm-hmm.
I think with the GI,
And that still doesn't happen.
well, no, it happens. No, we're doing.
Catch basin cleanup, have you seen them happen more than once a year?
It's
Or inspected?
our numbers have improved.
Yeah?
You can look at the numbers because of the legislation that council did. We've gone from a 3-year schedule to a 1-year schedule. So we inspected them. If they needed to be cleaned, we cleaned them. And they're doing even more deeper cleaning than they've ever done before, particularly because of the MS4 and the floatables issue. They're starting to ramp up and use more technologies to capture more floatables. So we're getting better because we've had more time to work with that infrastructure. I think the green infrastructure, as we get, there's certain locations where people are choosing to use it as a dumping ground. Certain contractors down the street will come and dump stuff on the thing. Like that, those are issues that we're still trying to work through. And I think with the cleaning schedule, it just has to adjust to that. There has to be, just like with the catch basins, there has to be a unit that is able to be nimble and go to where problems are. And there also has to be a team that does programmatically and goes around and cleans up in a rotation, as well as weeding and pruning and also watering if need be, if the situation calls for it. So, bear with us a little bit. I know people are frustrated with it to a certain degree. I think we're getting better at it, and we're also switching the assets from being not in our system to in our system quicker than ever before as well, which is really important that it lines up in our database, because then our teams will be able to see it and it can be used and deployed to those locations easier. So
Is that part of the open data source? When was the last time it was inspected, when it was
definitely
cleaned
not.
up?
Definitely not at this point.
Can we make a request, please?
Yes, I mean, you can definitely make the request. It's definitely
I'm making it to you right
No,
now.
I get it. I get it.
Because, and we will reach out to do it as well.
yeah, I think,
Because I don't think that what is supposedly getting better is happening across the board.
yeah, I mean, I know for a fact that the catch basin stuff is in, you can find that information, and that's getting better. There's no question about that. You check the MMR, that data is very clear. The only places that we've had backlogs are not here, they're in Queens, and because they have 45% of our infrastructure of catch basins in Queens. But in terms of rain gardens, that's gonna take a little bit more time.
Okay.
I think that's all the general information I have for you guys. I think we do, did she give out these sheets right here? Okay, great. So this shows you just a little bit of like the status indicators, kind of lets you decode the green infrastructure map so you can understand if something's a specific color or it's listed in one way or another.
I have it.
Okay, great. Gives you that information. What?
You're good?
I don't know. She gave me a look like I messed up something. Is there anything? Did I mess up something?
You're on camera.
I know.
Behave. Are you done?
Is there any other questions that anybody has? Any specific thoughts? Great. Thank you so
No
much.
more questions? Fantastic. So you will follow up.
Yes.
Henry's going to
Henry
send
needs
you-
to email us that
Yeah.
picture.
Yes, email it to Ms. Hubbard.
Fantastic.
It's one that has a specific tree. Yeah, okay. All right.
So at this moment, I want to thank Denise and Ibrahim for the presentation. We apologize for the interruption. I have our next presenter from the Girl Scout of Greater New York. Presenting on the Girl Scout program is Shannon Charles, Brooklyn Community Development Specialist, as well as Deborah Dennis, Membership Manager. If you could come up and join us. Of course. Thank you. It's good to see you. Thank you. Thank you. You just came back and now you're leaving? Really? Thank you. What's going on? Good luck. I hope you take back your information. The Girl Scout. Beautiful. Thank you, my love. Yes, please.
Hello, good morning. All right, my name is Shannon from Girl Scouts. I'm Brooklyn recruiter. So I'm here to talk about Girl Scouts, okay? Closer? Oh, I'm here to talk about Girl Scouts. Okay, let's answer the most important question. No, we do not have any cookies. 2 ways to get Girl Scout cookies is to start a troop or wait for cookie season to start. I hope we answer your questions. Okay? Okay. All right, is there any former Girl Scouts here or Girl Guides? How was your experience?
Excellent.
Oh, it was good? Oh, what level did you stop at?
As cadet.
Oh, okay, cadet. Okay, so here's a brief history. This is Juliet Lowe. Her nickname is Daisy. On March 12, she held her first Girl Scout meeting in her hometown of Savannah, Georgia, hoping to give the girls the opportunity to grow physically, mentally, and emotionally, even spiritually, Lowe started an organization with 18 girls in attendance, and that was her first meeting. So this is one of her troops she had. Okay, that's the founder of Girl Scouts. So what is Girl Scouts? Girl Scouts is a program that encourages girls to be leaders. We have a Girl Scout leadership experience, a collection of engaging and challenging fun activities where they learn by earning badges. So they do fun activities or learning activities, and then they earn a badge for it. They also go on trips, sell cookies, explore science, go outdoors, and do community service projects. At Girl Scouts, she'll lead on her own adventure and team up with other girls in an all-girl environment to choose the exciting hands-on activity that interests her the most. Okay. Also, she'll inspire others to discover her talent and passion. Along the way, she'll gain important skills in the four areas in the form of foundation of Girl Scout leadership: science, technology, engineering, art, and math. That's the STEAM program that we try to encourage. Outdoors, life skills, and entrepreneurship. Here's a picture of the robotics right here that we had. We usually have a robotics event, a fair where all the girls work together and try to make a robot. So we try to encourage them into the engineering field. They sell cookies, so we also try and teach them about entrepreneurship and how to start a business and handle it. What is needed to start a troop? We need 2 adult volunteers. Men can also be leaders. So if there's any men here who want to be a Girl Scout leader, we need a co-leader. Membership fee for adult is $25, for child is $25. We do a background check or a link on everyone who deals with the Girl Scouts. So anyone who deals with the girls, we do a background check. And we also have leadership essential classes where the leaders learn how to be better leaders or learn how to do fun activities and things like that with the girls. Where can you start a troop? You could start a troop at religious centers, schools, more after-school programs, community centers, your home. Pretty much anywhere you have a space, you could start a troop. We'll check and make sure everything's good with that space. So the different grade levels of Girl Scouts. So this is, Daisy's is kindergarten and first grade. So this is like a picture of, in your folder you have a booklet with a picture of like the breakdown, the different levels of Girl Scouts. And you have a closer picture. So the badge, this is the badge work. So Daisy's will learn about flowers. The flowers represent like honest and fair, being friendly and helpful, considerate and caring. This is the handbook where the leaders will get to learn how to do fun activities or like how to put the pins on the uniform and stuff like that. The leaves encourage the financial literacy and also the cookie business leaves. And on the side is the journey where they learn, another fun activity in the book. So as a Daisy Girl Scout, she'll gain new friends, earn petals, embrace the Girl Scout promise and law, make a difference in the community through a leadership journey, and explore the nature and outdoors. So this is the uniform that they will wear, and this is just an example of how the girls look together as a group and selling cookies. Brownies are second and third grade. The brownies, they have patches that is like innovator and what do they have? Like innovative patches and things. And this is their patches. They have financial literacy also. They have a handbook and the journeys. So as a brownie, she will expand her circle of friends, learn all kinds of new skills to earn badges, do projects that make a difference in the community, leadership journeys, and bond with her new friends and sell cookies. And as usual, explore nature and outdoors. Juniors is fourth and fifth, so this is pretty much the example of the patchwork again. They'll be more like doing, let me see, gardener, like to get them moving. They'll do patches about getting gardener, and they also do the journeys here. So as a junior, she'll share stories, try new experiences, sell cookies again, and outdoors. At this stage, they'll be doing the Bronze Award, which is one of the highest awards for the Girl Scouts. So they will start, like it's an award that promotes community service. Cadets is 6 and 8. The patchwork, the book, and everything is there. Cadets will be choosing an issue that she care about, earn her Silver Award, which is like another highest award. Try new experience and gain confidence and mentor younger Girl Scouts. Seniors is 9 and 10. This is their patchwork here. At this age, at this grade, they will want to travel to other places, be a role model, join other girls in tackling important issues, explore careers. Also, they will be working on their Gold Award, so that's another highest award they could earn. Ambassadors is 11 and 12th graders, and this is their patchwork here. That's the uniform on top. So at this age, they will be doing the Gold Award too, if they haven't done that yet, doing volunteer work, and they will be working on, like once they do their Gold Award, it helps them get scholarships and look good on their resume. So here's more information about the Gold, Silver Award, and the Bronze Award. So as I said before, Bronze Award is for 4th and 5th graders. They have to be a registered Girl Scout and have to complete a junior journey. It builds the Girl Scout junior team, encourage them to explore their community. They choose to do something, the awards I say is based for community service. So they'll try to do a project to help make the community better, learn how to make plans and put it in motion. Silver Award is for 6th and 8th graders. They have to be a registered cadet, do a journey. They have to identify an issue, explore their community, develop their project, make a plan and put it into motion, and reflect and share their story. Gold Award is to identify an issue. This is for 9th to 12th graders. They identify an issue, investigate it thoroughly, get help, and build their team, create a plan, and present their plan and gather feedback and take action. So pretty much the awards encourage them to do community service and also look good on their resume and help them get, like, I hear a lot of people say they get higher pay and stuff like that by doing these awards. So it's best they start from 4th to 5th to 12th grade. All right, that's the end. Any questions?
How many Girl Scouts?
Okay, so.
How many Girl Scouts troops are there in Brooklyn?
Almost 300.
So 300 Girl Scout troops. Do you have a map of that?
Yes, well, we have 7 geographic areas in Brooklyn. We call them service units. Our membership is 7,000 girls in Brooklyn, and we do that with adult volunteers. Overall, in our council, we have over 29,000 girls and 10,000 adults that help support that. We are a voluntary organization, so we do rely on leaders to run our troops, but our council supports them and encourages them. And the Girl Scout program is a proven plan of success. It's a leadership experience for girls, and we're here just as their mentors. So we're girl-led, they learn by doing, and you can see as even daisies, I'm sorry if I'm loud, starting in kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, they do community service, and they learn different skills along the way. So by the time they're up to their Gold Award, which is equivalent to an Eagle Scout, they're doing global projects. They're not just doing little projects in their neighborhood. They're doing sustainable projects. They're learning about other countries and their problems. And so we're building girls of leadership to take action in their communities. And I think one of the greatest things is to be invited here. So thank you as well for inviting us, and getting the chance to talk to you as leaders in your community. We're here to help these girls. So I even see that some of your objectives are to identify problems, talk to your residents, find out what those problems are and how to address their needs. And this is what our girls do every day. So we are here, and we hope that you would encourage your board members to invite girls to your meetings. I don't know if you have youth councils, youth boards at your meetings. Our girls, we can certainly spread the word to get our girls more involved in those type of activities, and so we would need your help to do that. If you let us know that you have specific needs, there's a Girl Scout out there waiting to do her Silver or Gold Award project. And so they're looking for ideas.
Sharon,
And
can I just
Yep.
interrupt, because there's
Yes.
an assumption that Girl Scouts, it's everywhere. And I didn't grow up with Girl Scouts. I didn't know where to go. My mom didn't understand what Girl Scouts were, and so there's a disconnect, right?
There is- there
There's
is.
this assumption that it's everywhere when it's not.
yeah,
So
sometimes
that's why
it's
I'm
also,
asking.
yeah,
That's why I'm
sometimes it's also
asking. One second.
culturally. Yeah.
That's why I'm asking for a mapping and list directory of Girl Scouts in Brooklyn, because I'd like to make sure that it's part of our website, so that parents know where to go. I don't know if it's part of your prospective websites. Show of hands, who has it on their website? One, the Girl Scout leader. Exactly. Do you see how it's all connected or disconnected? And so that's how you can gauge a room.
Yes.
Before we get to projects, we have to take an accounting of
Right.
where we are.
Where we are.
And so
Exactly.
we are in one community board out of 18 in a borough with 2.6 million people. And so that says a lot. And if we're trying to push our girls to become leaders, I strongly believe in Girl Scouts. It's wonderful,
Great.
but it should not be assumed that it's accessible everywhere.
Right.
And so you have to help us change that.
Understand that, yes.
Okay?
Yes, absolutely.
That's just a very important point that I wanted to raise, because I went through Boy Scouts with my sons, and I had to go to Queens, not Brooklyn. Later found out
Yes.
that Salvation Army has Boy Scouts. I don't know if our community board has it on their community board webpage, but I found out after the fact. So it's frustrating for a parent, because you're trying to do the right thing for your child, but the systems are not created user-friendly.
Yes, they are a little bit not user-friendly, I agree.
Hi, Sean Campbell from Community Board 14, and I want to first of all thank the Girl Scouts, because you're always a participant in our annual youth conference. It's a very popular table. I think you get a lot of signups there. But to your point, how can we be helpful in trying to introduce the concept of Girl Scouting to populations in our district that are serving often immigrant populations? Because a couple people popped into my head as you were doing your presentation that might be willing, ready, and able to get involved if we make the connection.
Okay, so we do need leaders to run our troops, and some people are not aware of Girl Scouts, where they are, what they're about. So we do a lot of tabling events to just create awareness. We do parent information meetings. We don't always have the right translator, so we need help with things like that. But in our schools, when we do presentations, if that's needed, they usually provide that. But we do try our best to be out there. Not everybody sees the little girl selling cookies anymore, so people don't know where to find them. One of the problems, if I'll address your question also, is that it's privacy, not privacy, but safety. For safety reasons, we don't publish where and when our troops meet. Okay, we do give out that information when requested, but it's not a public thing where you can just go say, okay, here's a list of all the troops, and they meet on Fridays at 2 and 5, or on Saturdays at 4, here and there. That's a safety concern of ours, so we're trying to do better with getting that information out. Our website is available for parents to go on, put in a zip code, and locate some information about troops in the area. Like, it might say that there's troops at St. Mary's on, whatever street, but it won't give you the day and time. Right. So we do encourage people to go on our website and join that way. As far as other, we do have all cultures. We are we don't discriminate against anybody. Everybody's invited. We're not a religious organization at all. Some people think we are, and they're afraid of that, and we're not. We do have religious awards that girls are allowed to earn on their own. So one of our challenges is to go to communities that don't know about what we do and educate them. So we're trying to do more branding. Our branding is out there, our messaging. Of course, we're not-for-profit, so there's not much in the way of commercials, but we do get a lot of press in New York City. We're fortunate that our national office is in New York City. And just a fun fact, our CEO is our new CEO, Sylvia Acevedo. She's a rocket scientist. So what better role model for our girls, as we're always trying to get them into those fields. But the community service is where I think we can collaborate the most together to identify needs in the community. And that might be also a good way for other cultures to see us out there, to see us at these meetings, to see us, interested in their concerns. And the girls will be out there, and they're just waiting to get somebody to say something that speaks to them, what they're passionate about, whether it's environmental, whether it's literacy, anything. And our girls, they come out, and they're so awesome. They just blow your mind with the things that they can do. And we have to let them do it, and we have to help them do it, but they decide what they want to do, and we're there to support them. So I hope I answered your question. I think it's more about awareness and how we can reach those communities. We are in schools, we're in mosques, we're in temples, we're in Catholic churches, we're in libraries, people meet in their homes. We are everywhere. It's just people don't see us as much as they really should. With 2.6 million people in Brooklyn, our actual national membership is 2.6 million members.
I read it.
Yes, so we do have, and we're also part of the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts, so there's about 10 million members in that organization. So we're a leadership experience for girls, and we try to have these girls help to make the world a better place. And we always teach them, as one person, you can do one little thing, but as a group of 2.6 million, you can do a lot. So we encourage the girls to advocate for their issues and community service. If anybody wants to come out on November 18th, we're having a Prospect Park cleanup. We have a 100-year pact with the Park Alliance to keep the Concert Grove area clean. So if you have any Girl Scouts, or if you'd like to come out and attend, you're all welcome. We usually get a very big response. And those are just some of the things that girls do. And then the cookies come in December. And we have an app. You can download the Cookie Locator app and find out where girls are selling cookies. So that's always fun. It's also teaching girls business and entrepreneurial skills. It's a great program. I can't say enough about Girl Scouts. I've been involved with it for over 20 years. My kids have grown. And I'm still here, still working, but still advocating for our girls. Any questions?
The membership, what are you asking? Go ahead.
I would like to have more clarification on the membership. Is this per group, per girls?
Okay,
How is it paid?
It's an annual membership. It just this year went up to $25 per person. We do have financial aid for leaders and girls, where we provide half-price registration and sashes and pins. So if we're going into a school that's a Title I school, we'll offer them that financial aid package. So it's $12.50 to register. We give the girls the sashes and pins and the books for the leaders so they know what to work on. So they work on a specific program. It's correlated to the Common Core, so we're a DOV vendor. So we do give support as much as we can until it runs out, okay? But so it's $25 per year annually. Per person, girls and adults and leaders. And we encourage the parents to register to support the organization. And it's a proven fact that parents who register and are more engaged with their girls, they get the most out of it. I mean, there's scholarships for older girls. We have a Green Corps. We have a Leadership Institute. So even one of Shannon's slides mentioned Costa Rica. So we had a group of 50 girls. Not all of them went, I think about 30, but they went to Costa Rica to do an environmental project over there. And that's what an experience for those girls they'll never forget. They met children out of school. They planted some things in the water to help the environment. Don't remember exactly what it was, but they're just awesome girls. And well, we're fortunate, I work there. I'm fortunate to work there. I see these girls all the time. They come in for their meetings. They have, like I said, the Green Corps. And they're just so willing to learn and willing to do things. And it's great. It's really a great organization.
Could I ask,
Yes.
where do the Girl Scouts go for camping?
We own a camp upstate New York called Camp Kaufman. It's in Holmes, New York. It's about 2 hours. Have you been there? We were there a couple of weeks ago for a staff retreat. So even us, we got together, we did the rock climbing wall, we did archery.
You said Camp Hoffman?
Camp Kaufman, K-A-U-F-F-M-A-N.
And has the Girl Scout of New York ever considered what would be Floyd Bennett Field?
Well, we have done things with Floyd Bennett Field. They do sleepovers for us. They have the park rangers. They take the girls out canoeing, things like that. So, yeah, we are involved with them. We've also done project with Coney Island Beautification Project, and there's something, the canal, the Gowanus Canal thing. I know that girls have been down there. And a lot of them do these things, they send in their trip notices, and that's how we know what they're all doing, and they notify us. So they are doing good things in your community. In Brooklyn, we have a powerhouse team of leaders. Oh my God, I just came back from the 54th annual convention in Ohio. There's about 10,000 Girl Scouts there, adults, leaders, girls, and it's such a great experience. And we had about 60 people from the greater New York area go, which was a pretty large number. And it's just so great to see these girls participating in. They had, all breakout sessions, but the girls actually vote on the legislation that they're working on. So they're making amendments to the Constitution, and the girls have a part of that. So they're like 1/4 of the delegation. There was over 1,000 people, so about 250 girls were on this. And I got to watch them voting and asking questions, and it's a really, really great thing. Yes.
Just a suggestion, as you mentioned, the girls participated in legislation. Community boards, and this is for your older Girl Scouts, community boards have a space for a youth member. I don't know how many
Yes.
They
boards
do.
have a youth member. There must be 16.
Excellent point.
Yeah, that's great. And we have a lot of girls that were interested in
It's an
politics.
official
Mhm.
position,
Yeah, that's
right?
great.
And it's appointed by the council member and/or the borough president. And so the nomination is just a matter of filling out what would be the application.
Okay.
But we have a seat in every one of these community boards. And we may have, I think we're up to 3 youth members. Show of hands, who has a youth member on their board?
Craig has all 3 of them.
And this one community board dominates the figure of what is youth development and placement. And
that's-
so
yeah.
this is why it's important for there to be some coordination
Yes,
and
yes.
a level of knowledge as far as inventory of where our troops are and having them access what would be an interchangeable channel of information.
Yes.
Because we want to make sure that we have a seat at the table for our youth. And that was law
Yeah.
that was passed to be able to age down. It
That's
wasn't
great.
something that was common just 3 years ago. And so we have to improve these numbers. The demand was there. Now there's no obstacle. Now the challenge is to get them back to the table to participate.
Well, I could almost guarantee that if we send out the information that these positions are available, we'll fill them with Girl Scouts. Absolutely.
How would you like that to be transmitted?
If any boards have any openings and you have an application, we can certainly spread the word to our older girl leaders.
Should
I
we
need to
send
know
it
what
to
the
this?
criteria is. What do you
Should we
have,
send
Shannon? You can send it to
S.
Shannon. That's
Charles,
great.
so it's on your agenda?
Yes.
Well, we don't have the applications. The applications come from Borough Hall.
Okay.
You don't, and you don't have access to them?
No, you have to go on your website for them.
Okay.
But if we could get the information and provide the link for them to go on there.
Right.
Our leaders that guide these girls bring those opportunities to them. And there are some really powerhouse leaders in Brooklyn that I'm sure would jump on this,
Mm-hmm.
to have those girls in there.
Right.
Yes.
Also, please email me any events or like put me on your mailing list, okay? Because so we could come and try to promote Girl Scouts and the benefits for the community, okay? Because that's how we can.
Yeah, so if you have needs and concerns and you need a girl to fix them, we'll help you with that. And if you have events where you have participation, you want community awareness or girl participation, we could probably get you a Girl Scout troop to help out at whatever you wanted, because they do all that.
How many of you have had the Girl Scouts of New York come and make a presentation at the community board meetings?
They help at our events, but
No presentation in front of the board to offer that type of service.
At the youth conference.
And so if we can work on trying to make sure that at the very least, just getting them to come to present so that more people beyond yourselves are able to interact with them as an organization, so that if there are projects outside of the community board line of sight, that people are accessing this as a resource. That would be fantastic. Yeah.
They did reach out to us, and they will be coming to our youth meeting.
Oh, great.
Excellent,
Good.
excellent.
Is that you, Shannon? Yeah, so we've been to some community boards, but I think it would be good to have the girls present as well.
Yes.
So we can certainly stand up here and present, but what an impact when the girl is standing there telling you
Absolutely.
what she needs and what she wants to do and how you can help collaborate.
Absolutely. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
All right,
I
thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much for having us, taking up your time.
Have a wonderful afternoon.
Does it just slide in? Do I have to shut it off? Okay.
So thank you, Shannon and Deborah. We look forward to seeing you again. We're going to move into what is old business. Have we submitted what would be all the USPS service delivery concerns? We're in communication, continued communication with the Postal Service. Any further? Has anybody sent to Abraham who came to present at the last meeting? Any concerns? I just want to make sure that we're keeping an accounting to hold them accountable to any concerns raised from your prospective community boards. I know that we've communicated what we had, that you've raised to us in the past, and what we have as our own internal inventory of complaints. So in December? In December, we're going to have a full cabinet meeting, and they're going to be here, and we're asking them to present on all complaints and status of delivery. So the more prepared we have him for December, the better service delivery as far as postal concerns we're going to achieve. Yes.
Do you want us to CC you on anything
Yes.
we send over? You got it.
Most
I
definitely.
can't remember if we did, I'll check. and
Yeah.
make sure.
That always helps. And we distributed what is the Borough Service Cabinet tentative date list for 2018. I just want to make sure that people review it. Make sure that we're not on election day, primary day, other cabinet meetings. Like, we're just trying to make sure we're taking everything into consideration beforehand to pre-plan. And it's not perfect, but as close as we can come to making sure that you have advance notice. And so if there's a problem date, please let us know. But this is the tentative by next month, because we have to start securing space here in Borough Hall.
There's a correction on April 25th. It says Tuesday. Is that Tuesday or Wednesday? Looking on the 25th of next year.
April 25th, you're asking?
Yeah.
We're looking right now, we're verifying.
It's Wednesday actually, but is it?
It's a Wednesday, not a Tuesday. Hold on. Okay, wonderful, Eddie. Thank you for that correction. And then, Viola, you're saying February 14 and March 14th? And those are Wednesdays, you're saying? And so, go to February. So Tuesday, the 13th for February, and go to the next one. And the 13th for March. Are those good dates? We're not interrupting anybody else's meetings? So this will be the recommendations we're going to take as changes. So we have Tuesday, February 13th, Tuesday, March 13th, Wednesday, April 20th.
December 12th, there's a conflict with one of our meetings, our district service cabinet meeting.
So, the Tuesday, December 11th. So Tuesday, December 11th, is that a conflict for anyone? Tuesday seemed to be clearer. Good? No, December 12th. Right, so we're changing it from December 12th to December 11th. Final changes then. So that way, okay. I'm sorry?
April 25th, the Wednesday,
Uh-huh.
that will be my cabinet.
That would be your cabinet meeting. And so Tuesday, April 24th, is that better? And that's not Easter week, is it? That's not a holiday? It's not Passover week or? Okay, so that's a good week. It's Tuesday, April 24th is what we're changing it to. So again, we have Wednesday, January 10th, full cabinet. Tuesday, February 13, district managers. March 13, Tuesday, district managers. Tuesday, April 24th, full cabinet. Tuesday, May 22nd, district managers. Tuesday, June 19th, district managers. July and August off. Thursday, September 13th, full cabinet. Tuesday, October 16th, district managers. Wednesday, November 7th, district managers. Tuesday, December 11th, full cabinet. Okay, so we finalized the list. Going once, going twice. Show of hands of support. Final list. Fantastic. We are set. All right. Thank you, Yumilki. And as far as borough consultation, so we are working with the Department of Education, who is the last agency that we have to schedule. OMB may not be here, but we have a note taker from our own policy unit who will make sure that on the record we submit what would be those responses. The questions that you have provided have been shared with the Department of Education. They are working on those responses, as well as it's been shared with OMB. So we have what are conversations that are back and forth concerning securing the date before all responses are final with OMB, because we want this to be part of their records. So just be on the lookout for what would be a last-minute meeting in the month of October. Are there any questions? I know. Mhm. Yeah. But that's us. We're the ones organizing that. Is there any issues on community district needs and budget request improvements? Any discussion? We want new business. And part of what I didn't mention as part of old business, whether or not it's new business as well, it's the do it conversation, and Barry's not here again, and so there is a conversation with Do It that has expressed we need to submit what are shared requirements. And that's a terminology in technology where we have to be specific with what it is we want to capture as information. And they suggested Barry has also what would be a core group of district managers that would want to participate in what is a working group to develop a list of shared requirements so that they can go back and start taking this list of shared requirements to then formulate what is the software tool that you are looking for and test run something that would suffice what is the request. So amongst you, it would be helpful to understand who would want to participate in that type of committee with Barry. I know he's time and time again expressed interest in doing it. I wanted to do it collectively, but I can't have what is our dedicated staff, Borough Service Cabinet meeting dedicated to that meeting. So I would want for you all to have that opportunity amongst yourself so that you understand what it is you're looking for. Does anybody want to volunteer as chairing what would be that particular committee?
Doesn't Barry want to?
But Barry's not here, and I waited 2 months.
It's holidays right now.
I know. And he was here for Borough consultations rather, and I didn't get a chance to talk to him because he left early, so I'm trying to make sure that if at the very least someone volunteers to reach out to him.
I'd be happy to do fallback.
Yeah.
Nominating, I mean, that's the price you pay when you don't come to a meeting. You get volunteered to chair a committee.
That's right, that you've been mentioning you want to chair, right? So in all fairness,
So I think, should we vote on Barry chairing the?
yes, please. Everyone in favor of Barry to chair what is the Technology Shared Requirements Working Group?
But I'm happy to play fallback.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I just want to make sure that people understand they have to convey to Barry those shared requirements. It does not operate where he's the one coming up with things. You have to be able to walk through case studies of what it is you're looking for. And then that gets developed by do it as part of what you've conveyed. That would be fantastic. Thank you. So I'm just taking down Josephine. Yeah, truly. Who else was interested in sitting on this working committee? I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Barry as chair, Josephine, Marnie, and Sean. Anyone else? Celestina? Okay, so we have a committee of 5. Okay? Right, and that doesn't mean that if you're interested in participating along the way, it's just that I want to make sure we have a core group. So feel free to make sure that you get in touch with Barry if beyond today you're interested in participating as a member of the working group.
And
And
make sure
then-
you address him as chairman. Dear Chairman.
He's going to love that. And so, just as part of the new business, proposed agenda items for next meeting, DOB enforcement is going to be one agency. Is there any other? Yes.
Since we're already having DOB, I'd like to add DEP to that. The state comptroller just issued a report of an audit of after-hour variances and connection with noise complaints. And that's something we get a lot of. There doesn't seem to be any real guidelines, I'll use that word, for when they ask us whether or not to recommend if one should be 45 days from a building, DOB gets a request for the AHB, they don't contact the community board, and it gets issued. DEP goes out to investigate, they don't find anything, but the
Okay, so you'd like to have DEP come back specifically on noise complaints?
the conversation has to be between DOB and DEP.
Mm-hmm. And what communications have you given to DEP regarding this specific issue?
We haven't communicated with DEP, but we have in the past been communicating with DOB on it. But the thing is that they don't communicate with us, so most of the time, we're not even aware that there are ADHDs until the complaints get to us. And then, we don't seem to have any real leverage on whether this should or shouldn't be issued. So it's kind of interesting that they'll sometimes send an access for our opinion.
Right. But it's not consistent.
So
Anybody else on this topic? Yeah.
So when I first became DM, whenever we had a nighttime variance, DOB would reach out, and that's really changed. Now they'll only reach out to us if there have been significant community-related complaints to noise. We're in a residential district also, so I'm confused what the change in policy was.
Right.
And also, we have had a lot of school construction related work that have automatic nighttime variances, and it's a big struggle because it's agency to agency. But when you're in the midst of a residential district and people have to get to sleep and you have a permit that goes on till midnight and it's very loud noise, it's a little frustrating.
Yeah.
So we have found our greatest success is meeting with the building contractor, the board, and the residents. We've actually, in the past, CB10, we've worked out some really good agreements in terms of work hours and weekend work when we all come together, and that seems to have changed. So I don't know what that is. We get some notifications, and it seems to be tied to noise complaints, is what we've noticed. So that's what I've observed.
And how do you get the information? How soon before construction begins do you get that information? Who gives it to you as far as the construction company?
It's usually the company that contacts, as of recently, it's the company who contacts us because buildings will not permit them to obtain a nighttime variance unless they come to community board and the community board writes a letter. But in some cases, they issue the variance and no one ever contacts us, so
it's the inconsistency.
Inconsistency, yeah.
And it starts with DOB,
Correct.
where the variance
Right, they're
process.
the agency that issues the
Mhm.
variance.
And do you receive what is notification from construction companies coming to you?
sometimes and that's what we're talking
Yeah.
about. What Josephine said.
Yeah. And it's in the inconsistency that you're trying to address because you can't factor in what would be the enforcement on behalf of DEP because no one's really verifying with you one way or another that the variance was issued, that it was requested, that community board gave permission, so that you're aware to address what would be future complaints.
So that's part of it. Another part of it is that DOB should only be issuing, based on regulations, should only be issuing variances for certain types of work. And that's mostly not the case.
And so what I would love to understand in writing, so that when we reach out to DOB and DEP, that we have a clear understanding where the gaps are. Because that way I don't want just intergovernmental relations to come and present, because that's going to be a waste of everyone's time. It's a matter of making sure that we get to the unit that processes what would be the variance and understanding that we're trying to address the inconsistency where the gaps are so that we have clear communication and what are the protocols that were set in place to avoid what would be the lack of addressing appropriate variances being issued for appropriate construction priorities. Does that make sense? Good. And if anyone else has something like that, send them to us so that we have, a collection of what is then a specific request for DOB to come prepared with those issues. Now, what I'm trying to understand is it necessary to have DEP here despite DOB? Because I find that DEP won't have the opportunity to really go into noise complaints, considering the protocols at DOB are faulty, to be fair.
Well, part of the thing is, I think it's and maybe it might be bigger than Borough Service Cabinet, is that DEP, I've learned, the inspectors don't even walk with decibel meters when they're going to a noise complaint for construction site. So that's an issue. The other thing is, there's a 9-day, their guidelines say they have 9 days to investigate a noise complaint. So, the contractor is doing demo for the next 3-4 nights. They get there 4 nights later.
Right,
it's over.
defeats the purpose.
So that's one of the things. I don't know what the resolution is, like, there should be some sort of data dump between the two agencies, maybe. And that's probably bigger than us, but I think they both do at some point need to
Okay.
be able to-
So in your email, add DEP and that specific example, because that'll help us address, in that scenario, I don't know if they have a variance or not that they communicated to you. And I don't want it to seem as if, because there wasn't a variance, that's where the problem begins or ends. It's just a combination of everything that's difficult to manage at your level. And so if you can just convey that via email, then we'll start putting this into action for the next meeting, if not possibly the December meeting. Okay?
I have a question. I know that I have a problem with, Marnie, with the vendors. The vendors on the streets, we have on Brighton Beach Avenue, and they just go beyond the 4 feet allowance. And would DOB be the person, or should DCA should be here? The supervisor.
Consumer affairs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's consumer affairs, but the problem
Mhm.
is that there are regulatory agencies and managers.
Yeah, see, that's the whole thing. Yeah, it's more of the enforcement part. We know that they're out of line, but yet there's not enough enforcement agents to go around to ticket everybody.
Police sanitation.
So I guess, yeah, it's just more, I don't know if DOB would be the agency to answer that question, where DCA
Right.
is the one that really,
Right.
the
The
enforcement part.
vendors?
Yeah, the vendors and everything that lines up the street. So just throwing it out there.
No, I appreciate that, Eddie, and I want to make sure that we are purposeful in how we create our agenda, right? And so, and I want it to be a collective matter as opposed to just one community board addressing what is one concern. So I need the participation of all district managers to go back, do a little bit of digging in their own systems to understand what do we have in our queue that can support this agenda topic issue. On the vendors issue, it's multiple agencies, right? DCA being one of them, as Marnie was mentioning, DOB perhaps being another, DOT being another, city planning being another. I did a lot of this work in the council, and numerous amount, just the permit, black market permit on vendors is a huge issue. And so if we want something that is more in-depth, we really have to make sure that we get a collection of what are the problem areas and what is it that we want to achieve, right? Like, because mapping out, there's zones where vendors can be at. There's licensing that vendors have to have. And then there's going to be sweeps. So NYPD has to be in the room. And you have to address what is the discarding of materials that you know, in the end, hurts what would be the vendor. And so balancing all of this.
I think that my board, we're going to focus on those issues as part of the Age in New York. Because a lot of these, number one, it's not vendors, it's actual merchants that have stoop line permits.
So that's
And
very different.
Exactly.
Very
And
different.
they're blocking sidewalks, and in communities where we have aging populations, it's important for somebody to be able to navigate the sidewalk and have the at least 9.5 feet.
Right.
And not 4 feet. So we're going to add that on as part of the Aging
Right.
NYC initiative.
Right. And so, Eddie, when you raise the issue of vendors, are you talking about merchants, stoop line? Right, a combination of, it's the obstruction of the sidewalk, period, interfacing with what is the public trying to navigate, what are already very difficult, congested sidewalks. And so, you know, give this some thought as a group, because I have no problem focusing the December meeting, which is all agencies, right? December being all agency, so that we take the month of November to send, October and November, to send them what are these complicated matters for them to report on. Because that's the time when they're all present, or at least we'll make sure that they're all present.
May I? The topic, not the stoop line topic, but the truck and food cart vendor issue has become really hot in our district because we have an organization called
Vendors Project?
No. It's actually Justice and Equality in Flatbush, and so they are vendor supportive and work with the vendor project, but they're vendor supportive and they're accusing the bids of being that the bid should support all of the businesses, including the street vendors, and the bids go back and say, no, it's our mission to support our bricks and mortar merchants. So it's gone back and forth a lot, and I've spoken with this group and said, what you really need to do is it's in the streets that you're on, that your vendors are vending on, are restricted streets. You would need that changed in the administrative code, and tried to explain how they'd have to go through it in the process, but they're kind of interested in getting the attention and the spotlight on them the way they're already going about it. But I just wanted to, I don't know, Josephine, you did such a great amount of work on this several years ago when we had the large meeting down by the aquarium with multi-agencies, and I was new then and got so much out of it. I don't know if it's time to revisit, find out where the city is on increasing the number of vendors or how they're prioritizing vendors, because the 70 precinct is getting a lot of heat for they're asked to enforce, and when they're enforcing, then this group is going back on them and calling it police harassment.
Right.
So it's a really, you pointed out, it's a fine line here.
Yeah. And what year was that, Sean?
When did we do that, Josephine?
That's 5 years ago. I mean, it's a very big issue for us as well. And the bottom line is there is no system. It's the Wild West out there. And that leads to conflict, and the boards are trying to intervene, but yet without an overall citywide change and consistency where everyone knows what the rules are, having it there, it will not be fixed.
I mean, I know vendors that are utilizing what is a $200 vendor's license, and in the black market, it is up to $35,000. It's terrible.
My vendors don't have licenses. They are renting, which is completely illegal, but yet it still doesn't seem, and it comes from City Hall, there needs to be someone that wants to take on this issue, and I just don't see it.
And I know that we were trying to, in the council, expand the vendors' licensing. That's how we became very familiar with all these nuances and, you know, the black market versus what is the vendor's license. If you just cap them, then it becomes a premium license that people just continue to rent out, and like a subleasing. And, you know, the city's losing out economically. So I appreciate, you know, that perhaps it is time to revisit this issue, and we could prioritize it for December, but I, you know, want to caution, it needs to be very well thought out because it's multi-agency. And it requires what are prospective district zones of where the issues are, the consideration of what is a stoop line issue versus a vendor versus a food truck. And so I just want to make sure we're taking all of that into consideration. So if there are no other announcements as far as new business is concerned for proposed agenda, I think we're set for the next 2 months. I'd like to give the floor to Craig, who has an announcement. Oh, there's one. What did I miss? The camera. Oh, I'm sorry. I kind of skipped that part. At this moment, because we are done, unless there's any other concerns or announcements from the prospective community board district managers, I'd like to call this meeting to an end. Thank you very much for coming. We will see you all next month.